Hello. So we are gathered here today to talk about Karuna's beautiful, beautiful book called The Heart Asks Pleasure First. And I'm just going to wait for Karuna to send me a request here, and I'll quickly send her a message. Oh, here she is. Perfect.
Hi.
Hello. Hi.
Hi. Sorry,
So,
I'm trying to set this up. I'm so bad with setting up
don't
these
worry.
things. Is this one sec? Is this better? Yeah. Hi.
Yeah, perfect. So nice to see you. You look lovely.
Hi,
I
Jody. So good to see you.
Yeah, I am so excited about this conversation. And if I mean, I don't think I need to introduce anyone here to Karuna. Her first book, The Heart Asks Pleasure First, has just come out to absolute rave reviews, and I have a very nice story about it. So I've known Karuna through mutual friends, through common, through family. For a very, I've heard of her, and I've followed her work for a very long time. And I never quite had, the guts to send a message and be like, "You're so cool. You're such a person. I'm so intimidated." Um, but I
I love saying this to me. Like, the
true,
feelings are so mutual, and yeah.
true. I've been following your work since I was for such a long time, and I've been such a fan. But yeah, I remember I was in Oxford, and going through like this phase in my life of deep sadness and loss and just this identity crisis where I'm thinking about the world, where I'm thinking about a subcontinent, where I'm thinking about love. And then all of a sudden on my Instagram timeline, it Karuna's book and the synopsis, it shows up. And in my it's and for me it was one of those moments where I'm like, this is God sent. Like, this is the book I have to read. This is the story I need to read. It's the only comfort. If there is comfort for me right now, it's going to be in the pages of these books. And it's by Karuna, who I've admired so much. So I sent her a DM and I'm just like, can you please send a copy of your book? I will buy it, but could you send it to me? And then very politely, Karuna did send it, but then I got stuck in customs.
Oh
Uh,
gosh, customs. I can't
okay,
believe they stopped me from sending my own book to a friend.
yeah, can you believe that? And then I got, and then I got text. It was stopped at customs. 3 weeks later, that sense of just loss got so intense that I finally ended up taking a flight back home. And I still remember with like this one single trolley, this tiny 5'5" me, and like four massive suitcases and a little hand-on laptop bag. I pushed to the Delhi airport, and the first thing I do upon landing in India is get your book. And like from Delhi till Jalandhar, 7 hour, car journey. I read it from like page one till the end, and it's to so for me to have this conversation, it's so special.
Thank you. And I remember when you wrote to me and you said, I read it in one sitting. And I think you said I read it all at one go. And I remember feeling very flattered. But then when I actually wanted you to do this chat, and I said, Gurmehar, would you please do this with me? It would be amazing. And I remember writing, but did you actually finish the book? Because you'd have to finish it to the chat.
Yeah,
And I remember you said, no, that wasn't a turn of phrase. I actually read it in one sitting. And I was so touched and thrilled. That's so incredible. So
and
thank you.
it's not even sat and like read it in one sitting. I've memorized like quotes from the book, and I say it out loud to myself. And my favorite, and I think, you know what, let me like ask you this, because let me like first, I mean, I can go on praising the book because it's so special to me. But so I know that when you look at the book, it's it comes off as your very, the first instinct one has is, oh, it's a love story. It's your Romeo and Juliet, forbidden love, star-crossed lovers, cross-border romance. Your Veer Zara, right? That's what comes to one's mind. And if there's one thing that I've learned that I now know is that love is the way it's shown in media, the way it's shown in pop culture, the way we talk about it in Bollywood films. um it's nothing like that. It's not a feeling, not in this part of the world. It's deeply political. So
Hmm.
so when you were writing this book, did you, and this was 13 years ago when you wrote your first draft, did you realize that you were writing a very political novel and not a love story? I mean, it's a love
Uh,
story,
you
deeply,
know,
deep.
I think initially I began writing it as a love story, and I think I very quickly realized, I think by the second or third draft, I realized, and I'm talking now between 10 and 13 years ago when I was working on those first few important drafts of the book. Um, I remember realizing that I'm perhaps not ready to write the book this needs to be. And that's why I kept going over it again and again and putting it away. And I constantly felt I just didn't know enough about what I wanted to convey. I, I knew very deeply uh, the feelings of love
Yeah.
already, but I didn't know how love is so politicized, like you said, and especially when you're talking about a cross-border story in this part of the world. And I knew the book needed to be more than just a love story. Um, because I was telling the story not just of Aftab and Daya, but of so many people who have had these cross-border experiences, and not just love in the sense of lovers, but love in the sense of friendship, love in the sense of family. There's so many of us, essentially this is a story about the effects of partition, right? And uh, I didn't think of it as a partition story when I began writing it, but it is a partition story without being set at partition in any way. And it's about the scars of partition and what we're trying to heal even today. So yeah, so to be honest, when I started writing it, it was just a love story, if there is any such thing. And over time, I think I learned so much more about the world and the politics of the world and politics of this region, and attempted to put them into that love story, or rather have the love story finally reflect those important bits.
Yeah. And I think, and something that you do very well in the book, which I've not seen done anywhere else before, that dealt with a cross-border love story, if we may say, is it's charting out this realization of, love is political, because you have these very young protagonists. You have these very young protagonists who come to that understanding as the book comes to close. Do you Does the book in a way reflect your journey from the first draft till the last?
Oh, definitely. I would definitely say so, because if you read the first draft of the book, it is, uh, I don't want to call it childish because I think we should be kind to our younger selves always, but it is childlike. I was 21 when I started writing it, and the book really reflects that. I think the first draft, which thankfully not too many people have seen or get to see. But when I look back on that first draft, even the bits about love, uh,
Mhm.
they're not they're not as passionate or deep as the bits in the final draft. So yes, the journey of the book and its many drafts definitely represents, my journey as well and my understanding as well. And even, with every draft, it became more and more politicized.
Yeah.
And I think that's been my journey as well. At 21, meeting Pakistani and Bangladeshi students abroad, they were just, it was interesting and they were just friends. But today, I understand that just that friendship in itself is a political act.
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely, and that understanding has been slow and reflected in the final draft of the book, I hope. But I think the book now, when it's out now in this age, it is oddly so relevant right now, even though I came up with it 13 years ago. And I find that, I've said this before, but I find that a little sad in some sense, that the book should still be this relevant 13 years later. In fact, more than ever before, we live in an age where Daya and Aaftab's relationship would be called love jihad.
You know,
So,
in fact, I just wanted to have, in fact, I just wanted to ask you this. First, it's a story that you know, that it's a story that you began writing 13 years ago, and you're publishing it today. One, I really want to know, was there ever a moment of hesitation where you were like, maybe, I could have published it back then, maybe there were easier times, as opposed to today? Because the world that we're living in right now, as divided as we are, the India that we're living in right now, um, where hate, where we don't even, where to be fair, we don't even remember the language of love. You know, we don't believe in love anymore. We speak hateful tones. We see the world as us, and
yeah.
that's been the way of the world for the last many years.
Yeah.
Was there
And it
was there
seems to some days only be getting worse, right?
actually been
Yeah.
getting worse? So how did you ever, was there ever a moment when you were going through your legal reads where you were like, why am I doing this now? Maybe this is
Well,
not the time.
well, I will say this. I didn't think that, but there were people around me who cared about me, family members who were worried,
Hmm.
and they did say that it is a dangerous time to be putting out a book like this. Because it does
Yeah.
speak the language of love, this language of love that we seem to have forgotten, and we do live in an age where India, I mean, the secular fabric of this country, let's make no bones about it, is, I mean, our government has taken a rake to that secular
Yeah.
fabric. We know that. And so there were people who were very, very worried about this book coming out when it was. And they said, it puts a spotlight on you because you're pretty
Yeah.
much calling out these things without calling them out. And for me, though, I realized, it's almost serendipitous that the book didn't come out when I first began writing it and when I first wanted to publish it. It was meant to come out right now. We need so much more of this language right now. We need the language of togetherness, of secularity and solidarity right now. And I truly believe that. And I know that there are those who've read my book,
Yeah.
and they found it distasteful because of exactly those ideals that it tries to propagate. But I do hope there are those who read it and see the senselessness of the times we're living in, perhaps.
And I think, and something you do in your book, um, and something you do in your book, which is incredibly brave, because you don't ever limit the conversation to just countries. I think we understand, you know, we don't the identities of Daya and Aftab. We don't understand. We're not told that they're Indian and Pakistani. You've taken a
Yeah.
very, very brave step, and you talk about religion. You talk about religious divides, and that's what the partition is about. You divide a whole continent, and you tell people that that's the way of the world. You, so how was it difficult to have these conversations? Was it difficult to write it out without ever feeling like you're not doing justice to the complexity of the situation? Or was it, because
Mm,
I find in the book that I feel it, but did you ever, was that
well,
ever a
I'm extremely self-critical, so I didn't doubt myself, but I did want to constantly question myself. And I wanted to ask myself, are you doing all you can in this situation? How have you phrased it? What is the language that you have used? How are you describing different cultures? And I wanted to show different aspects of each religion. So, no religion is bad, or if one religion is bad, all religions are bad. We have
Yeah.
to accept that, and nobody's spirituality can be questioned, and I think I wanted to put that idea forth and forward that, that that idea of looking in the mirror before we point the finger. And that's why, the book has good Hindus and bad Hindus. It has good Muslims and bad Muslims. And it really questions the idea of who is a bad Hindu and who is a bad Muslim and who is
Yeah.
a good Christian, And, and we know this, you and I are from two different faiths, and we were talking about this just the other day, that, I think it needs to come down to, and this is very much what I wanted to put out in the book. It needs to come down to good action and bad action. But it is the characters in the book really are questioning those things about themselves. And I think that was also me questioning all my ideas about God, about spirituality, about religion itself. And yes, you're quite right. I did not want to make it an India-Pakistan story, though that is so important in the book as well. And it's another layer of, separation that the two star-crossed lovers have to experience. But
Mm.
we need to ask this question, I think, that if we take away the Pakistan part of it, and if it
Yeah.
was just, if Aftab was just a Muslim boy from India, let's say, would they have the same struggles? And I think the answer is yes. I think the answer is definitely yes,
Mm.
because that is sadly the world we're living in. And I think that is partly why I do think the book had to come out now. Um, because it is not just an India-Pakistan story. It is so much a story of two different religions,
Mm.
um, and the religions that are being, God, separated so terribly in this country right now.
Yeah. And talking about coexistence, why, it's of course a story of, Daya and Aaftab, but there's a very important relationship between Wasim and Daya, which is
Yeah.
friendship, which is coexistence, which is being open to each other and learning about each other's faith and finding friendship. How did you how did you craft how did you how did you craft Wasim? Why
You
was
know,
he important in the story?
so, I wanted Wasim's character uh, to reflect all that Muslims hold beautiful about Islam,
Mm.
and that can't be ignored either.
Yeah.
And so I definitely wanted him to represent that. But I also wanted Daya to have a relationship with a Muslim boy that was not sensual or sexual, that was not a lover. And because, we all know in a relationship, the things you learn from your lover, there's defensiveness, there's insecurities, and so realistically, Daya
Yeah.
could not learn about Islam from Aftab, because they couldn't have those candid conversations, because the second they discuss their religions, they have
Mhm.
to discuss their future and the
Yeah.
reasons why they can't be together. And they're existing in this beautiful bubble of love, and they don't want to go there. So the person she has those conversations with is Wasim. And
Yeah.
so I wanted to use Wasim as, as this sort of vessel of beautiful
Mhm.
information about the Islamic world. And he believes in it so deeply. And, he says, there's this part where he says, my jihad is light, my jihad is me being a better person every single day. And that is what he truly believes. And, there are parts in the book, without giving away too much, where
Yeah.
he has to come face to face with those theories and those ideas. But before that, he imparts all this wisdom to Daya and opens up the doors to this side of Islam for her. And I think that's really special. And, for his part, he tells her one, he says, "You're my first Hindu friend."
Yeah.
And he's never had the opportunity to have a Hindu friend. And he
Yeah.
asks her all kinds of crazy questions about
Yeah.
Hinduism. And the two of them discuss it. And Gurmehar,
Yeah.
I'm sure you've experienced this, when you have friends from different faiths and you feel comfortable enough to talk to them about it and question them about it, but not in an aggressive way or a defensive way, in honestly, in an intellectual
Yeah.
way. How
Oh,
much fun is it? It's so wonderful, and there's so much to learn, and it's just about immersing yourself in a different culture. And
yeah.
I've had that with friends, and I'm sure you've had that with friends, and I really wanted to represent that kind of friendship, so that's Wasim and Daya, and I do find the
Mm.
relationship really precious, and I know I've written it, but I find it precious beyond what I wrote even. And I think I'm a writer of fiction right now, and I do think the magic about fiction is that your characters tend to take on a life of their own after some time, and I love that. So yeah.
My beautiful story. I'm not going to tell. I'm not going to talk about what happens in the end.
Of course.
Um,
Yeah.
I'm not. No spoilers to anyone. But I do want to. I do want to. I do want to ask you this, and I do want to. And I do want to think about it as well. Do you think what? Do you think that the relationship that we see in the book, whether it's Daya and West, it's Daya and Aftab, whether it's Daya's parents, do you think we've reached a point in the world where it's not possible at all? Do you
Oh
think that
no, I
the
I,
people
I
are
agree.
that amount of that at the end of the day, the conflicts are massive. It's identity, right? How do you think when it comes down to actual people, when it comes down to accepting a faith that you're not familiar with, rejecting a faith that that you're born into, um, opening those doors, do you think people can do it beyond fiction? And which is where my next question about love jihad will come, but I'd love to know this.
Well, I don't think I can afford to believe that.
Yeah.
Um, because, you know, if I don't believe that it's possible for people like, say, Asha and Gyan and Daya and Aftab to exist in real life, I do believe that we've come to the end.
Yeah.
And I can't believe that. And I think just the fact that you and I are sitting here having this chat means we haven't reached that point. And
I
I would
hope.
like to believe.
Yeah.
Right? And that's the thing that I would like to believe. And I do see around me, in your words, small acts of freedom. I see those every single day, and I see people fighting for a more gentle world and
Yeah.
yeah, and a fairer world. And I actually take hope from those little things. It does get hard sometimes, as I'm sure it does for you, especially, for example, when you look at Republic Day and what happened, when you look at the backlash, and I'm sure, we've all been feeling so low the last few days. When I watch the news every evening, I just think, wow, I can't believe that this is becoming a debate about,
Religion.
whether one, yeah, and about religion, about whether one random actor is, why is it coming down to such ridiculous things? And you see the greater, bigger story, and you're quite disturbed by it. But then I see beautiful things as well. I see people giving langar to people of other faiths. I see I mean, there's so many beautiful stories like that, right? And some of them are in the book as well.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know if you remember when, the mosque that Wasim visits, when he's
Yeah.
telling the story of it. So, that's actually from a true story. There was a mosque that was going to be built in the UK, and there was a right-wing white supremacist group in England that said, we are going to bury a pig on the site before the mosque can be built. And people from the community actually came together, and they all held hands around the entire site and said, we will not let, and they were all white people, they were all white Christians. And they all held hands around that on the day that the construction began. And they said, we will not let that happen. You are most welcome. in our community. And there are so many beautiful stories like that as well. And I think it serves us to remind ourselves of those stories and to continue to tell them, um, so that we remember
Yeah.
that there is good and there's continuing good, and we
You
mustn't
know,
lose that.
and
Yeah.
we always talk about people's stories when we talk about love. We
Yeah.
never talk about narratives. Um, we never talk about, every time um, we talk about moments of interfaith solidarity. When we talk about people serving langar, when we talk about langar being served at Shaheen Bagh, or we talk about the Muslim solidarity that people have seen at the farmers' protest. These are actual real people stories, but these would
Yeah.
never, these would never be shown on TV. At least,
Yeah.
right now. In fact, they would be. Something as beautiful as falling in love uh, is now criminalized in UP. There's
Yeah.
a whole concept. There's this whole ridiculous law made to legitimize this crazy thought of love
Yeah.
jihad.
Yeah, and it's, and
And
there's this, it's also so patriarchal, right? This
yeah,
idea that, and I mean, it's like, oh, we must protect the Hindu woman. But, what about protecting the Hindu woman's choice to
yeah,
love who she wants? And that's another reason why I made Daya's decisions about Aftab in the book are so strong, and they're so definite and they're very much her own, there's no influence, and I wanted very much to show that Daya, she might be young, but she has made those decisions to love this man from a different faith, on her own
um,
and through her own heart's guidance, and I just, I mean, I'm so saddened to see things like Love Jihad. But I just want to do like a shout out to the India Love Project on Instagram, which I absolutely love. And
yeah.
like they're doing such a great job to tell other stories, and I really adore that. And I think I want them to actually feature like Aftab and Daya like somehow.
I swear, like, you know, they're such special. They're such special people.
Yeah.
Um, they're such special people. But when I think about, but even when I think about Love Jihad, even when I think about these stories, um, a huge, something that something, and when we talk about women's agency, because at the end of the day, that's what it comes down to. Whether it's, and it doesn't matter what religion it is, right? Whether it's a Hindu girl and her parents saying you cannot marry a Muslim man because you'll become Muslim, or whether it's a Muslim family saying that we can't
Yeah.
have daughter-in-law because what about our grandchildren? I think in this whole project of othering, always the female that's reduced to nothing but a womb,
Yeah.
right? An
So
object.
true. So
Um,
true.
Nothing but this. It's almost as if both families, in concepts of honor, legitimacy, place in the world. In fact, their faith and their connect with God is dependent on this one single woman, and her choice of loving. There's something there's something that Daya does which is incredible, where throughout the relationship there is no promise of the future, and she's okay with it, and yet she loves despite it.
Yeah, and I do think that is that, I don't know if that's the privilege of her youth, to live so I don't know, bravely in the moment. Is that the word? Bravely, I guess. So bravely in the moment of love, right? And perhaps it is also, uh without giving away again anything about the ending, guys, anyone who's listening, there are no spoilers here.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I do think that for the entirety of her, affair with Aftab, uh, they are also protected from the idea of the future by there not being a future.
Yeah.
And that's kind of heartbreaking, right? That so many, and we see that reflected in real life. I know so many of my friends who are in relationships or have had relationships with someone of a different faith, with someone of a different caste, with someone of the same gender, and they can't imagine a future, and they're not, they are not, that's not a privilege they're going to be afforded. And that is really sad, but in Daya's case, and not just in Daya's case, in the case of anyone who finds himself in that situation, it is so brave to continue to love in the face of no future, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah,
Right?
100%. With
Yeah,
no legitimacy even,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
With no sense of respect maybe,
yeah,
uh, and just live in a phase of, I guess, constant sheer vilification. Because if the state sanctions it, the society follows. If
yeah,
the state says it's illegal, if it's wrong, if it's vicious, it's all kinds of bad, then the society is just going to stick by it.
yeah.
My next question to you, well, it's going to be a fun question. Uh, how inspired is Daya's love story from your life?
Well, it's no secret, I think, that
Yeah.
I did choose to rewrite this book
Yeah.
or start write it again after a gap of many years when I met my partner and the man who became my husband. And so I was very much falling in love and in the throes of that when I put pen to paper after 3 or 4 years with this book
Mm.
and sat down to write it. So, I think one has to be in love to maybe write this much about love.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because or maybe better writers than me can manage.
Mm.
But I found I needed to be in that state of mind to actually write about it and to write a love story, because all the times I'd attempted it before, I'll just tell you what one editor said about an earlier draft. I sent it to an editor and she read it and she said, this everything is fine, but why would anybody like Aftab? so, clearly before I met my husband, I was writing a very shoddy version of the male protagonist. So I'm glad, I actually waited to rewrite it when I was feeling those things. So that is definitely inspired. There's so many things that are lifted from my life. So for example, I did study at Cardiff University, but there is no dance school there,
Yeah.
and the Markova school that Daya attends is completely made up. Uh, Daya herself was actually inspired by a friend of mine who
Yeah.
was a dancer at the time. You might know
Mhm.
her, Sabah Azad.
Oh, of
So
course.
yeah, so Sabah's, one of my dearest friends, and she was dancing at the time I began writing the book. And so I did base the fact that she was a dancer and, her body type and all that. And at that time, I think Sabah had very short hair. And so, I based it on that. And I very much wanted Daya to be different from me, So I've always had this really long hair and stuff. And so I wanted her to be physically also different so that yeah, so that people aren't imagining me when they're reading the book.
Yeah.
So yeah, so there are many muses who made it to the book, and
Yeah.
sometimes it's in the form of just one conversation I had with a friend, and I
Yeah.
lifted off from there. I did have many Pakistani friends while I was at university, and that was an eye opener. That actually formed the seed that became this book. So yeah.
Yeah.
I would say some of it is inspired, but a lot of it is just my imagination.
And I'll also tell everyone that after this question, we will be taking audience questions.
Oh, yeah, I didn't realize how long we've been talking actually.
I have so many things to ask. But I also want to talk about something that you do very well in the book is, something that you do very well in the book, which is the almost like this liberal elite farce that people have. I genuinely think we're all liberal. I generally think we're all elite. I, you know, we're or I genuinely think that we're all educated, and I genuinely think we're all progressive when it comes down to talking about accepting people. When it comes to saying, oh, of course, I don't hate Muslims, or I don't hate people of other faiths. Oh, of course, I don't believe in the caste system. But when it comes down to acting on these beliefs, all of a sudden becomes, it becomes a question of who you are. It's a threat on your own identity, it's a threat on your own sense of being. How something, and you you expose this hypocrisy very well throughout.
About
Was
the
it about
liberal elite.
your liberal elite, your wine
Yeah.
drinking?
Yeah.
um is it something
No, no.
you've thought around yourself? Because I know I have.
Uh,
um
so, someone asked me recently that, was that intentional? And I said, oh, it definitely was intentional. Daya's parents, they're well-meaning,
yeah,
and they've raised her to not know much about religions, and they're like, we're all the same, it doesn't matter. And it comes as a shock to her when, in her 20s at college, she realizes there are people from different religions and they're all very different. And I didn't know this. And that's because she comes from this privileged bubble of rich people where
yeah,
even the Muslims her parents know, have
yeah,
drinks with her parents, and even and everyone's in interfaith relationships and things like
yeah,
that. And that comes with privilege, and I think the liberal elite tend to forget that. And I have certainly been guilty of that in the
yeah,
past. And, as you admitted, have as well. And I don't think there's any shame in admitting that. There's so much learning that we each have to do. And it's the same as saying, oh, the caste
yeah.
system's abolished. I don't see caste. We don't ask the question of caste, and that's something we hear so frequently
So
and that is the easiest way to actually continue the caste system and let it continue existing, right?
yeah,
Um, and we hear this, it is an all lives matter attitude,
yeah,
and I
which
think we all,
yeah,
sorry, your
which is,
voice.
I don't see color. You have so many people who
Yeah.
would, yeah, who would say, why does Black Lives Matter? I don't see any
Yeah,
color. All lives.
exactly.
But of course, those are such privileged days, and I think that's the beauty of your book. You, at no point is there ever, you're not shy of talking about religion. You're not shy about talking about the attitude of of the liberal elites. You're not shy about talking about Daya coming to understand Islam for the first time in the UK. Having been, been born in India, having been born in a country that's been, that suffered, that suffered the that continues to suffer by the partition. Being born in a country where Muslims and minorities, all minorities um,
Yeah,
oppressed, are
we have to
uh,
live in fear.
yeah,
That's,
have
that's
come to here. And I think that's the beauty of your book, that that through it all that without shy, you just talk about, you talk about everything, and yet at the heart of it, it's this innocent, pure love story.
Thank
You know,
you. And I'm so glad that you read it so passionately. Thank you.
it was the only comfort I could find on my way back from Delhi to Jalandhar. Uh, but yes, so I will. Sorry, I'm a little bit blind because I'm not wearing my contacts.
Oh, I heard. Yeah, 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 yeah.
Situation, but I will read out your questions.
There's there's
Yeah.
one that, wait, let me just, sorry, I don't know how to, yeah. Oh, got it. Yeah. Okay,
Okay.
so question, do you think love will ever be able to have a choice in our society? Yes, I definitely think that's possible. There are some people who already have a choice, and I do think that that comes from education, it comes from tolerance, it comes from spreading love itself. I honestly, I think that the way we're going right now, um, we're moving to a space where less and less people will have that choice. But it
Yeah.
is up to us to fight that, and it is up to us to change that. And I think the more people who put forth the idea of this choice, uh,
Yeah.
the more we propagate that, the idea that we can have that.
Yeah.
Um, Let me
I think
see.
some
There was,
did is did say that we've been so vocal about the farmers' protest. Um, so Amrinder, we did talk about the protest here, and Karuna has been very much a part of the conversation, has been very supportive of the protest, and has so much, is such an important voice. I think, Karuna, if you would want to uh, talk about it, take this.
yeah, honestly, there's absolutely, for the last few days, I've actually been quite quiet about the protest because, not because I've quit supporting it, but because I've actually been really disturbed by people's responses to what happened on Republic Day. And like with what happened with BLM in the United States, I do think that it's so convenient to shift the focus to a certain amount of violence, and to paint a narrative that is erroneous, actually, and I don't agree with. I don't think the focus should be on some random incident of violence. I think the focus should be on what the farmers are protesting. They're protesting laws that aid a capitalist economy and do not actually help them.
Yeah,
And I do believe that, it's shocking to me that more people are not actually uh, concerned and invested in this and are not empathetic to their cause, because I literally tell people, I'm like, every single meal you're eating has it at some point. This meal, you can trace it back to farmers. Whatever
yeah,
it is you're eating, whatever it is you are eating goes back to these farmers. And I'm like, this affects each one of us personally. And it is not just a small group of farmers. This is literally the biggest protest in human history. It is the biggest protest recorded on planet Earth. And I find it incredible that people are actually not more concerned about it. And I do hope that the narrative doesn't shift into something petty about, Deep Sidhu and about, 26 Jan and all this nonsense, and, who was behind this and which faction. And I don't think that's important. I think the laws are important, and I think the
yeah,
resilience is important. So that's my take on the farmer protest. I've been quite silent, like I said, the last few days because I am disgusted, so I'm tired, and I
yeah,
can say that about so much that's happening in this country. I'm disgusted and I'm tired. And
yeah,
there are days where I don't feel strong enough to raise my voice, and there are days that I take to myself to sit back and absorb.
yeah.
And those are days right now. So yeah.
Somebody asked a beautiful question, which is, had Daya and Aftab been older, do you think their perception of each other would have been different, or their perception of the relationship would have been different?
Oh
Who
wow, that's such a good question. Um,
I
I I think had Aftab and Daya been older, I truly believe they would not have plunged into the relationship with as much aplomb as they do in the book. I do think that there is something to be said for the innocence of youth. And I think when the weight of age comes upon you later,
yeah,
we tend to think more practically, and that's a little sad, but it is the truth, I believe. And I do think that Aftab and Daya would have thought twice about this if they knew everything that was to come.
you think so? I have a question. Why does Daya go to Aftab in the first moment? Why?
Uh, in the first,
Like the first time she meets him, why does she go to him?
uh, oh, why does she walk up
Yeah,
to him?
why does she walk up to him?
Why do we walk up to anybody? It's love. Honestly, she saw a boy reading a
Yeah.
book on a bench, and he is beautiful, and she looks at him, and there's something inexplicable that draws her to him. And she sees him writing something in the back of a book, and she says, I want to know what you wrote in the book. And I feel that's how love works. It is the
Yeah.
most inexplicable things that draw us to somebody, that attract us to somebody. And yeah.
But you did say that you did say there's innocence of youth. And maybe had they been more experienced, or had they been, had they been wiser, weight of the age, they wouldn't have made this choice. And and right now you just said that why does anyone walk up to anyone? It's love. And I think I do want to talk about Aftab, because he's somebody who, he's experienced that pain of loss. He's experienced the pain of not having the freedom to choose who he wants to be, who he wants to be with, what his future looks like. And yet there he is, knowing Daya, knowing that maybe, having experienced that, and yet he does, despite all his wisdom that's come from experience, yet he does go talk to her and develops this friendship. So
Well,
I'm
well,
going to
the
ask,
way
think age, do you think if they had met each other many years later, wiser, they still wouldn't fall in love? They
I
wouldn't.
think I do think they would have fallen in love, because I don't think falling in love is something you can choose. So I think they would have definitely fallen in love, but I don't know if they would have embarked on the same journey together. I think when we're older, we tend to decide based on things and that's the thing. People choose based on religion. People choose based on how easy it's going to be. And that's the thing that there's a voice that tells her, when she's struggling with this battle of whether she should be with him or not. There's a voice that tells her, uh, you've eliminated a million fights by choosing not to be with him. And she says, but the greatest struggle and the biggest fight is to not be with him. And so, yeah. So,
Oh my God. Sorry, I'm just, oh, sorry. I Kardashian accent every time. I'm just like trying to hold back tears. And I have no interest in crying to all of the internet right now. Thank you, Kar. That's what your book's done to me. Um,
oh,
yeah.
do we have time for a last question? Um,
Um,
I just want to say someone has referenced the ending over here, and I'm not going to read it out because I don't want to give spoilers to anybody. But one thing I find very interesting about the ending, without discussing it
yeah.
obviously, is that everybody takes away something different from the ending. And there are people who are like, oh my God, it was so happy. And there are people like, oh my God, it was so sad. And there are people like, oh my God, what happened? So, without saying anything, I will say this, that anyone who hasn't yet read the book, please read it. And, I would love to hear what people think of the ending, because everyone has a different theory about the ending. So that's quite interesting because I didn't intend that. I'm just
There's one
seeing if there's any other,
that
I'm just
says,
checking.
which I asked you as well, which is, if your
Yeah.
book is turned into a movie, who who do you want to play? Like, who would you want to play your characters? I already know who Aftab is going to play. I have a very
Who?
yeah. It's one of my friends from class.
Oh,
Very
yes.
curious,
Yeah.
a very bright.
Which one you mean?
So just so people don't get ideas, but the entire time I was reading the book, I was like, yeah, this is what Aftab is like. So I know if I was made the casting director, I would cast my classmate.
I don't know who would play the roles. I'm really not sure. I've really not thought about it. And I guess we'll have to see if it does become a movie, who it ends up being. I do though think that Tabu would make a beautiful Asha.
Yeah, 100%,
Yeah.
100%.
I I want to you this one second. Okay, I recommend that people, okay, no movies. Um, if
Mhm.
age made it more practical, wouldn't Gyan and Asha's characters in a way cease to exist? No, I was talking about practicality in terms of, religion and caste and those things. So we were actually talking about it, is choosing a more political love story possible? So yes, um, I don't, I feel like we've missed some
Yeah,
questions. But
I'm
oh,
just.
here.
I,
Um, could you talk about the process and how you brought music, poetry, and historical references in? Yeah, I wanted to put all the beautiful things that I know into this story. And so when it came to say language or stories from history, little interesting things that I'd heard, I didn't see why they shouldn't mingle with fiction. And so I chose what to give each character, whether it was a love of mangoes, whether it was the stories of the Mona Lisa. And I wanted to actually divide these things amongst my beautiful characters who I love so deeply and dearly. And thank you for recognizing that and for realizing that. And I wish I could have put more music and poetry in, but there are copyright issues. So yeah. Um, I just want to check if we have any more questions. I do think that we
just
might be.
yeah,
Uh,
Miss. See, I'm. Don't trust me because I can barely see. I'm so sorry.
I'm just going to check. I don't know how much. How do I check the just? I sorry, I don't know how to check this. Can we get a signal from someone? Can someone tell us what the time is? I just can't see it. I don't know why.
It's
Um,
seven- yeah, it's 7:24.
oh, so I think it's probably going to cut us off in another 5 minutes. Yes, I am coming up with another book soon. This winter, my second book will be out, and it is a book of poetry. So I hope you enjoy that very much. Any
Um,
last questions, guys? You can type them in
yeah.
the comments box because I think we have about 5 minutes left.
If you someone's asking if you would recommend a few other similar books.
I just did a list of my favorite books for Reader's Digest, and I can tell you some of those. Some of my favorite books are The History of Love, The English Patient, what else? The Stories of Eva Luna. Yeah, these are some of my favorite books. I hope you enjoy them. If you're looking for love stories, then these are gorgeous ones. Um,
Yeah. Okay, so
so
Karina, I have one last question. If I'm allowed to ask, I asked so many, but they're of course about the book. Um, but what, if anything, you've created this beautiful magical world. If anything, what would you like to say? Um, what would you like to say to people who don't back such relationships?
sorry, I couldn't hear you.
Who
It cut off. Sorry, who don't?
What would you say? What would you say to people, those who don't back those who don't back relationships, out of caste, out of religion, out of country, out of race, out of gender?
This is such a beautiful question, Gurmehar, and it's so easy to talk to those who believe the same things we do, right? And we tend to live in our echo chambers and bubbles and do precisely that. Um, so honestly, if you put me in a room with somebody who doesn't believe in the things that I do, who doesn't believe that we should be allowed to love who we want, be friends with who we want, that we should respect, everyone regardless of how different they are from us, I think the question I would ask, instead of telling, I would ask a question and I would say, what are you so scared of? Because honestly, what I have seen is everything we imagine the other to be
Yeah.
is is a farce. Everything we think the other is, whether it's someone from a different caste from you, a different country from you, a different, sexual orientation as yours, whether it's whoever it is, and I think it's usually born of fear. And so that's why I would ask, what are you so scared of? These people are human and you are human, and
Yeah.
the human experience is a shared experience and it is beloved. So, yeah. Yep. That's a great last question, I gotta say.
Last answer. That's a great answer. I think, yeah, I think it's gonna stay with me for a long time. But Karuna, thank you so much for
Thank
for
you. This was wonderful. Thank
you know
you.
so much for writing your book. Thank you so much for talking about for talking about the difficulties, talking about the talking not just about the difficulties of being young and falling in love and then realizing how politically problematic it is for all us young people. But I think thank you so much for taking it on and not presenting your reader with this fairy tale, but the realities of the world. I'm so glad you did it and so beautifully. So thank you so
Thank you.
much. Thank you
Thank
so much.
you. And thank you everyone for tuning in. Just so you know, both Gurmehar and my books are available on Champaca's website. So please buy from there and support an independent women-run bookstore. That'll be really wonderful for us as well. And I hope you guys enjoy reading my book. Thank you so much. And to those who have read it and have said such beautiful things on this chat, thank you all so very much.
Thank you.
Bye. See you. Bye. Thank you. Bye.